Welcome to the Sweet Science of Fighting podcast today. The big man, Ed Cosner. Welcome, Ed.
How you doing? I'm doing
I'm
good.
good. Yeah, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. We've actually been trying to get this for a little while now, but now you're
Oh
a little
wow,
more settled. I think it's the right time. But for people who aren't familiar with you, Ed, I know you've had a long, extensive career in coaching. You want to give a little brief background about yourself for everyone?
wow. I'm entering my 30th year of coaching. I started coaching at UT San Antonio. I actually started the program there. I was the very first strength coach while I was an undergraduate student. Went to Baylor for grad school. Was a graduate assistant there. Went to the San Antonio Spurs, where I won two NBA championships, and then started just doing more private training. And that private training's taken me all over the world, training members of the New Zealand All Blacks, rugby club, as well as and quite a few other internationals. Mainly the front rowers.
Hmm.
I guess they gravitate towards the plus size models like myself. But doing the Highland Games, one multi like I guess Masters World Champion in the Highland Games, national champion in the Highland Games. Won a few powerlifting championships from juniors and seniors at nationals and worlds, YMCA nationals. So let's just say to my pursuit of strength has been a lifelong pursuit.
Hmm.
So I started probably competing when I was about 14, and I'm 62 right now, and I'm still competing.
Damn. Okay, yeah, that is very, 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 very long. A lot of experience in those sports, and be interesting to kind of maybe start with around your strength conditioning philosophy, because just for we can gear it towards athletic performance because I think it's still obviously relevant regardless of the sport. But even just coming from a lot of these strength sport backgrounds, powerlifting, Highland Games, etc. I guess how much of that for you carries over to your philosophy for athletic performance?
Uh, It kind of depends. It depends on the athletes that I'm training. I mean, I've trained San Antonio Spurs players. I came in to introduce the Olympic lifts after I'd worked during the 98, 99 lockout. I was training guys that had played for Chicago, that played for the Chicago Bulls. Trained Will Perdue and Steve Kerr. I also trained Sean Elliott, and Sean was a played at Arizona with Steve, and they were under Meg Ritchie Stone and my friend Dan Burke, who's one of my mentors. So they already knew how to Olympic lift, everything else. So
Mm.
that was the idea. But then there were other players that weren't going to do it,
Mm.
and then after a while they didn't want to. They got a little longer in the tooth. And I'm a big believer from my throwing background. As I love med balls, I love jumping. Nobody expects a 5'10". Like I said, when I was throwing in the Highland Games, I probably tipped the scales right around 285, 295.
Mm.
All of 5'10". Could snatch a house, could snatch 100, 125, 130 kilos. My wrist and hands are messed up from throwing. So my power clean was right about the same weight, if not less. But I could also jump on a 36-inch box, land straight legged, and talk shit to you while I was doing it. So, bleacher work, everything else in that, hops, skips, everything, always moving like an athlete, no matter what my size was.
Hmm.
And when I trained a boxer in San Antonio, Jesse James Leha, who was a former two-time world boxing champion. Not while I was training him. James was phenomenal, little 130-pound fighter.
Hmm.
And when I was training guys during the lockout, he would always say, "Hey, this you guys got to run this. This is Jerry Rice's workout. You got to run this. This is Jerry Rice's workout." And I looked around. one day when he was saying that. He was like, "What?" I'm like, "Man, there ain't no mountains here. Jerry Rice runs up in the mountains. I mean, this is what Jerry does." I said, "You're doing 16 110s. Every football player in America is doing 16 110s right now. That's just a normal test." And I mean, he was really good. I mean, James was no ego involved in it and everything like that. But I explained to him that he was running, but he wasn't running against the clock, and he wasn't resting against the clock, and how it would change when he did. So we talked that whole season. Of course, we won an NBA championship that season, and James asked if he could start training with me. So we were, and we never touched a weight. And a lot of people look at me, they're like, "Oh
Mm.
my God, you're not." No, we didn't touch a weight. We threw med balls, we jumped, We did the speed ladder. Oh my God, somebody might, you go crazy if I said they did the speed ladder. And he ran 400s and 200s until we got about 4 weeks out, and we would run shorter distances. But he hopped bleachers. He did single leg hops. I would make him, single leg run down the 100 yards and everything else. But we threw the med ball, and that's what we got strong with. So my philosophy will carry over, but it carries over into when I examine the sport, what the sport needs, not what I need.
Would you take that approach? I guess because it's many years since then as well. Would you still take that same approach with some athletes, or are there some athletes that you would not lift and just do throws, jumps, and running, etc.?
No, I pretty much want them to lift, a couple days a week, for that strength. James just didn't have the time, and then when he fought, after he fought Costa Zoo in Australia in 2003, he was going to fight. He was fighting Gotti next, and we started lifting then.
Gotcha.
In that, so he had time to do that, and then started seeing the benefit of it. So trying to convince him, but not throwing names or anything like that, but like Avery Johnson was probably 10, 11 years into his career. He'd never done an Olympic lift in his life. Was he going to do one? Nope. He sure as hell wasn't. But get him to do single leg squats. We would do RDLs, single leg. So after he did his single leg squat, he'd leave his leg back there on the balance. He would do RDLs that way. And we would do that, and we'd do some light jumping. We'd go out to the floor and do med balls, and then we had an upper body day as well. Was that the best thing for Avery? Maybe not. But the best thing is twice a week he'd kill himself in there, and we'd go out to the floor. We'd throw med balls, we'd jump, and then he would tell me he's done. Mm-hmm. And his southern accent from being from Louisiana, I mean, he would be eat. I'm done. Okay. And I'd take my med balls and go back in the weight room. So, and then there were other guys that wanted to do more. And then you always have to, I don't know, I said it before, but there's always some bartering and bickering, especially with professional athletes, but even with high school athletes. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were guys on a team that was like, hey, if you do this, and this for me, I'll teach you how to do 2 new arm exercises. Oh, what do you know about getting, bigger arms? Your arms are big, but there's not a lot of cuts. So I'd have to pull up a picture from bodybuilding. And they didn't believe it was me. I don't know if they didn't believe it was me because I had abs and was cut, or that I had hair. But it was my way of getting them to do stuff. So yeah, I mean, I find ways of getting to them and getting them to lift. It's the same thing as I'm doing here right now at Hobart Field, where I'm at right now, working for the Air Force. Special operations. I work with civil engineers, I work with firefighters, and I work with EOD techs. And the EOD and the firefighters, they like to lift, but they're not doing the best lifts for them. They're doing bodybuilding or whatever crap they find off the internet. So trying to start incorporating what they want. They all want functional training, whatever the hell that is. So I kind of introduce different things to them, and some of the strongman circuits and everything else. Bring it down a little bit different than than when I was working for Nola Gold doing it. But they love doing it as a challenge, and I'm getting them to do what I want them to do. And hopefully they don't ever hear this, but I'm getting them to do what I want them to do without them having a clue that I'm getting them to do this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, perfect. And you mentioned about obviously the term functional, which is still thrown around today, even though it's not really a thing. But to tack onto that before I come back to some of the weightlifting stuff, machines and free weights, because they're obviously typically classed as free weights seen as functional, machines seen as quote unquote non-functional. Love to know your take and opinions on kind of using machines versus free weights for athletic performance training.
If I got to add some weight to some muscle mass to somebody, we're going to do some free weights, but we're also going to utilize the machines. I mean, or if I got guys in season, especially in season, we'll get some power cleans in. We may do back work in, but then we're going to get over on a machine where I can go chest supported like a hammer strength row, pull down as opposed to pull ups. You get a guy that's, shoulders are banged up, playing whatever sport that he's playing, whether it's rugby or throwing or anything else. And, he's only going to be able to do so much. So, yeah, machines are good on that. But and I like it. I like the machines to get volume.
Mm.
I'm not going to do a ton of we're going to do fives and heavy fives and stuff in RDL. I got to get a little bit of volume work on a shoulder or a hamstring. I'm gonna go over to a leg curl machine. Now we'll
Yeah.
stretch afterwards. I'll make sure that muscle's not just short the whole time. But yeah, I don't ostracize them. I mean, I've used them. I don't use them all the time.
Mm.
I use them sparingly in the work, but I'm still going to use them.
Yeah. The last thing I want to think about is having to do volume on barbell rows. I
Yeah,
hate that exercise
or
so
a
much,
squat.
man.
Even that, or a squat. I mean, you want to get some good
Yeah.
volume.
Mhm.
You're not going to do that on a squat. I'll do that on a belt squat,
Mhm.
but I'm not going to do it on a regular squat. Not even with a safety bar squat, because once you start fatiguing, you start helicoptering and moving. And,
Mm.
people think that a lot of times when Louis Simmons first started talking to everybody about his philosophy, that was one of the things that's why he looked for the multiple sets of threes and twos. 8 sets of three was one of his first, ones. It wasn't just because that's what the Russian literature had him doing. He looked for that volume that he needed for his power lifters, but he wanted it at a heavier weight. But then he
Mm.
also looked at it like, if I tell this guy to do like a heavy set of 5 or a heavy set of 8, he's gonna fatigue and he's gonna start slamming off the bottom, or he's gonna start helicoptering where the bar's starting to twist and everything else, and he's gonna get hurt. So, if I do this 8 sets of 3, I'm still getting 24 reps in volume. I'm getting it at a little bit higher load, but I'm also making sure that I don't injure that person.
Mm.
So that was one of the things I took from him. He used to come to the NSCA conferences. I met him in 95, 95, 96, 97. He would come to them and pretty much hold court out in the lobby of the hotel. Sit down and talk to him. I mean, Louis was always. I might not agree with all of his stuff or anything like that, but I don't agree with anybody's stuff.
Mhm.
I don't agree with all of my own stuff. But he was always willing to share and willing to talk to everybody. So he was a lot of fun to be around.
What's some of the stuff from Louis that you don't agree with?
I don't agree with changing out exercises is often. I don't really like partial lifts.
Mm.
Not really big on partial lifts. Close grip bench, yeah, I'm gonna use a block in that, but I also am not a big believer in gear. I almost ran a little experiment with myself. I detrained a little bit from having an injury, and my knees were bothering me. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wear a pair of light knee wraps that I would normally have wrapped down my knee and back up. I'm just going to wrap down my knee, and it'll give me some support, a little bit more support than a knee sleeve. Okay. Well, I started using them. I used them for 4 weeks. And I was like, man, I'm going to squat without knee wraps. And now these knee wraps are from when I first started powerlifting in 1985. All right, so they're older than most people, and so they still had some elasticity to them. They didn't, but then a couple weeks ago I squatted without them, and my knees were weaker. They weren't stronger. They were actually weaker, and it was like, wait a minute, So squatting to a box all the time just doesn't equate over for athletics. Using it different parts. I've used it different times in my training cycles. Mostly when I feel like I'm not going low enough, or I'm not getting where I want to be, or my knees after blowing both of my Achilles. So athletes are always going to be injured somewhere. A lot of my airmen that I train will do a little bit of box squatting to get them down there, but a lot of them have issues because of their ankles, because of the boots that they wear all day long. I mean, I got guys that are civil engineers. They're driving big trucks and tractors and heavy equipment and building roads, building runways, building buildings. So they're out there working their asses off, and their feet are a little bit more banged up than others. But I don't think I know any athlete that doesn't have a screwed up ankle somewhere.
For sure. I've got you got a live question for you, Ed, from the YouTubes here, from Emil Palaki. Hopefully I said your name right. Is there any reason for combat athletes to train above 8 reps, even on isolation exercises?
First, I wouldn't have them doing isolation exercises anyway. I just not that we're going to use a whole body, especially for that. We're going to use the whole body like they're going to use in combat. or whether it's combat where I'm looking at it with my airmen, or combat where I'm looking at it like a combat sport. I'm using the whole body. I'm not going to do anything in isolation.
Would you ever go above 8 reps for any of the exercises?
No, generally not. I'll go eights, but that's when I start manipulating the rest time.
Mm-hmm.
So we might do the 8 reps. We might do it on shorter rest times, 30-second rest in between sets, or
More of like a conditioning effect when you're
right,
going into higher reps.
conditioning effect, pushing through it. I mean, you could look at like a 1-arm bench press. We'll go one arm on one side, we'll roll it over on the chest, go to the other side. Well, that other arm was resting while you were doing it. Roll that dumbbell back across your chest. Just keep going. Same thing for dumbbell rows. I mean, you do it, you do the other side, you just keep going back and forth. Stand up when you need to. Your lower back starts tightening up, stand up. But yeah, but isolation. So I don't know. Isolation to me, maybe I'm not understanding, but isolation to me is like a side raise, front raise, bicep curl, tricep. Yep. That we'll do that towards the end. They're not going to go more than 8 reps or so. Maybe if we do a burnout set or something like that, 12 to 15. But no, I don't. So
coming back to your partials things, right? You mentioned that you don't do partials. If obviously if someone's injured and they can't get down the full range, I get that. But if someone's not injured, they can do their full range normally. Are partials never part of the program? Even say maybe closer towards a competition, fight, anything like that, or is it always you're just going? You want full range of motion on everything?
Partial, like maybe partial, on a squat jump or something like that. We're not going to do it on a squat.
Oh yeah.
Now, for a thrower, for a jumper, that's something different. That quarter squat, heavy overload on the quarter squat, that's gonna be in there. For strongman, that's where I picked it up when I was doing strongman, trying to get the stone on top of the barrel because I'm all of 5'10", with short ass arms. So trying to get it up there, but I looked at Gary Taylor, who was a Olympic lifter in '84 for England, and then did strongman, won World's Strongest Man, I think in '93. And that was his problem. He's 5'10", 5'11", trying to get it up there. So that we would do a front squat to a quarter,
mm-hmm.
And overload it in that. There's videos of like Ryan Krauser doing, an ungodly amount of weight doing quarter squats and stuff. Yeah, I mean that's in there for that. But you're gonna have to have some training time in before I introduce that to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're gonna have to have a significant amount of training time before that gets introduced.
No, you're good. Regarding the Westside as well. So for anyone who's not familiar with Westside, is Louis Simmons, the creator in geared powerlifting, and one of the, I guess we could say, Westside conjugate philosophy is around dynamic effort, max effort, repetition effort, etc. Does that carry over at all to your program? There are quite a few coaches that use, I guess, a lot of that framework with the athletes. Is that something you often use at all?
Yeah, I use that. I've been using that before.
What was it called before?
Oh shit! Yeah, I have no idea. It was training. It was part of the
training.
Yeah, you had days that were going to be a little bit more explosive. I was going to put more. For me, it would be more Olympic lifts and throws in it. You had days that were going to be more strength oriented, and you had repetition days. But the repetition day for me would be challenges. I mean, you and your workout buddy, challenges. There was always that. I mean, and more power to Louis for coining it and running with it. I mean, shit. He introduced it to a lot of people. A lot of people like to use it and not give him credit. I'm real big on, I give credit to everybody that I've, stolen stuff from. I tell people all the time, it's like, oh man, that's a really good idea. The first time I use it, I'll give you credit for it. The second time I use it, I'll, hey,
claim it.
I learned this from somebody, and the third time, shoot, I was doing heavy squats, and I came up with this idea. So,
oh, perfect. Give us some examples of those challenges.
Oh man, my buddy Milo and I, we'd get done doing our like squats, and I have to get a couple of sets on the way back down, and we'd stop at like maybe maybe like 500 pounds or something like that, 455. And it was like, all right, and it was whoever went first. And sometimes you just do you just do the reps that were part of the program and you're done. And then other times it was like, all right, you're supposed to do 5. Now I'm on 8, 9, 10, 12. Put it in a rack and just kind of walk off and see if he would do the same thing. Or we put 585 on the bar one time. We are supposed to do 8 sets of 3, and we decided to keep doing 3 on 2 minutes rest. We decided that we were going to keep doing our sets of 3 on 2 minutes rest until one tapped out.
And what did you get to?
17. Didn't walk right for 4 days.
I can imagine.
I had to get out. I had a Jeep. I had a Jeep back then too. It was hell pushing on that clutch. just little challenges like that are always going to be, or talk, so like one of the younger kids in the gym talk a little trash or something like that.
Yeah.
So you have to step it up, and then you challenge them, and Milo would do it in the bench press. My other friends, I didn't. My bench press sucked, even though I power lifted. I'd rather do it in like behind the neck press or overhead squats, that kind of stuff. So,
well, that behind the neck press that you showed me, what was that? Maybe 7 or 8 years ago. The one on the rack, I love that one where you're seated with you have it behind on the pins and you're trying to just lower it back down quietly back to the pins each time. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't understand is like when you're doing a press behind the neck, you're going to push press it. So you're from your traps to your head right there, right around the ear, you're going to use momentum to get that bar up. There's no way you're going to use a decent amount of weight trying to press it off your traps. Unless you're some freak Olympic lifter or something like that, and most people aren't. So I use that for that. I started doing that when I was a kid, but then I picked it back up when I was in 2006 when I went and visited the Crusaders. Started talking to I was down there visiting Ashley Jones and my buddy, and it was like I was doing some work and my shoulder was jacked up. And I started talking to some of the older guys. Their shoulders were jacked up. And I was like, you can press off the pins like this. You can do this, whether it's from the front or from the back. But then you don't have to worry about bringing it back down. Most people, the hardest part is bringing the bar back down. Unless they're your sweetheart, Lona there. I mean, she can bring the bar back down.
Yep.
The rest of us, that thing comes crashing back down, at light speed with no control.
You miss the traps and you get your spine.
Yep, you miss the trap, fine. Or like me, Jesus, I came down with a newer Texas Power Bar. How was I? I was with
a rough knurling.
Yeah, I was in a real rough knurling, and I was in it was a Seattle Sonics back when before they became the Oklahoma City team, and I was there, and the bar came down and it hit my fat wrinkle in the back, it took a chunk of skin off. That thing didn't stop bleeding. I'm like, I know that I had the bar closed, but then I looked at I took a shower and I was like, man, why is it burning so bad? And I looked and my back from where I was letting the bar drop was just screwed up. It was like, wasn't just in one spot though. It's like, how did I get it down there? I had it down there like a low bar squat. I hit so many different places. So, so to me, it's just a little bit more control, mostly control to restart it. And get a good press off of it, get a good hard drive out to the lockout and then back down. Yeah, that's always been my favorite press. I just did them yesterday.
I'm gonna do them tomorrow.
I did it the day before I did the heavy barbell rows.
Nice. I actually have another question from Emil here on the YouTube. He's saying, is there any value in unbroken speed reps? So basically no pause, fast eccentric and concentric. So I'm assuming kind of just going up and down, up and down, up and down.
Usually you're inviting injury when you do that. That's like touch and go deadlifts, anything like that. You're inviting injury. So if I was going to do like that, like a pull, and I'll do clean pulls that way, where I'm gonna get 5 reps, but I'm gonna take the bar down to maybe my socks or mid shin, and I'm gonna reverse and come back up.
Yep,
I'm not gonna touch the ground.
Floating. I've been doing a lot of floating reps recently too.
Is that okay? Floating rep. Yeah, just So yeah, Emil, that's a good way of doing it without taking a chance to get hurt. If you're touching the ground all the time, you start fatiguing. One arm gets a little longer, one shoulder rolls forward. You're gonna
Mm.
tap. You're gonna tap wrong on one side, and you're gonna start twisting in the wind, and you're gonna end up getting hurt. So, and I wouldn't do it in a squat just because I don't want to. A lot of my athletes are beat up, knees, ankles, everything. Everybody's got different
Mm.
flexibility on there, so I'm not gonna really do that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
With while we're on the topic of certain lifts, Zercher squats. There's
yeah.
always contention around Zercher squats. You for them, against them?
I like Xerxes squats,
Mm-hmm.
but I use a fat bar.
Oh yeah.
I use a fat bar because I don't want that little bar digging in. I use a fat bar. Somebody makes a Zercher pad now.
Oh, for reals?
Yeah, I think Rogue makes it Zercher pad. And I'm looking at
Okay.
stuff that I'm going to order. Yeah, so I mean, better than taking a beach towel in that. But yeah, I mean, I'll have a sweatshirt on when I do it, but
Yeah.
I'm going to use the fatter. That's why I like the like a yoke, like the yoke walk.
Mm-hmm.
You can use that for carries and all that. But I have a 2-inch bar.
Nice.
Just axle bar. I mean, so I'll use that. It just displaces a little bit more. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I like them unless it's for a strength athlete or for somebody else. I mean, I'm using it right now. I'll use it for my for some of my population. I would use it and I used to see it all the time. This guy that owned a gym up when I was in Houston. I wouldn't use it for a baseball player.
Mm.
I don't want to put that bar across that bicep tendon where it comes down
Yeah.
to that forearm. So I'm not gonna use it for a kid that's built like a wire hanger. Little skinny
Mm-hmm.
ass arms hanging out, so there's a little bit of meat on that forearms, and it'll pad up. I've used it before, but I really like using the fatter bar for it. I think it's a little safer.
Yeah. What do you think the front squat just provides a better stimulus anyway because you don't have to support it in your arms and you're still getting a front loaded bar?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like front squatting. I like keeping the things in the front. I do my back squats. I do a high bar, I do low bar. What I found is a lot of people using specialty bars. The longer bar, this safety squat, and I've actually went back to because I want to get back to doing overhead squatting. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I grabbed the bar. I'm like, yeah, I just go underneath it, and I couldn't get underneath it. My flexibility had gone so much in my right shoulder because that was my injured shoulder that I lost a lot of that flexibility. So I've been spending the last couple of weeks trying to get the flexibility back to go underneath the damn bar. So
Yeah.
just trying to make sure I maintain my flexibility and mobility.
Mm-hmm.
I put a picture up yesterday, stretching and
Mm-hmm.
some static stretches, and I do that when I got to the Spurs in '99. Brungy was my boss. He sent me out to the Egoscue clinic. Pete Egoscue, who was one of the very first, was actually a football player named Junior Seau. He was his trainer when Junior was at USC, and then the whole time in the NFL. Junior played 18 years in the NFL.
Wow.
And Pete's a physical therapist, but in athletics, it was brilliant in that. So I learned out there is like you get in this position right here and you stay for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, giving your muscles a chance to relax a little bit more, relax a little bit more. So that picture I put up on my social media in the power rack like that with my leg pinned back.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed in that position for 5 minutes, stretched my arm over my head, and I just laid there.
Mm-hmm.
I would sometimes I go to the floor and do it, but I was just too damn lazy, and the bench was right there, so I just laid on the bench. And my airmen they'll come in for like extra workouts or something like that, and they've seen me in there stretching. One guy actually, I was just stretching, trying to get my shoulders out, get both of them down because my right shoulder my hand would not get to the ground, and I was trying to sit there and like almost like a doorway stretch, and I just laid there and I was just laying there for a couple minutes, and they came over to check to see if I was dead.
At least they care about you.
It's like, it's like, I don't know if I should be, thankful that y'all were checking on me or the fact that y'all think I'm that fucking old that I died.
Yeah.
I tell them because they keep removing the damn safety catches on the racks.
Mm.
You don't need to remove the safety catches for squats. Most of you don't squat low enough, you're not going to hit it. I want them up for bench press. They're like, yeah. See, I don't want to come in here in the morning when I walk in at 6 o'clock because the gym is open 24 hours for them. It's just
Mm.
their gym. I'm embedded, so I'm in their compound.
Yeah.
But they can come in there anytime, to get their workout. It's like, yeah, I don't want to come in here and somebody's got a bar across their neck. Because I'm gonna feel really bad. I'm gonna feel really bad when your mom is missing you, and the Air Force doesn't know where you're at. Because I'm just gonna throw your body out to the side. There's a couple of bears that walk through here, so I'm sure somebody's gonna get eaten somewhere. They were like, "Oh man, that's funny." I looked, I was like, "Oh, I thought it was funny." I was serious, but this is different being here, though. I mean, there are actually bears on base. There are little black bears on base. I haven't seen one yet. My senior strength coach Adam, he's like, "Yeah, he backs through the gate thing right here." So I keep going out there. I throw like my apple cores over. I want to see them. I want to visit with them.
So you're just inviting them closer and closer.
Yeah, I'm trying. There's also another area by a track that we have, and another area where a gym, and there's several gyms on base for different units, and they have a snake wrangler because there's snakes out there. Like, yeah, that I don't want to see. That you will find a 260-pound guy screaming like a girl.
I also want to touch on it just quickly before we come back to that. Your strongman conditioning. I know you're a big fan of conditioning circuits with, I guess for the listeners, strongman based exercises, tire flips, sledgehammer, farmer's walks, carries, etc. Do you maybe run into just some of the, I guess, what, when, why, how, basically?
How? Why? Because when I was in the Army, we didn't have the fancy gyms like I work in right now. So pushing a deuce and a half, 2.5 ton truck, Jeeps and all that just became necessary for what we wanted. When I got to the gym in San Antonio, when I started training there, there was a shop out back, and this is when World's Strongest Man was kind of getting a reemergence in the late '80s, and there was a shop out back that had the big earth mover tires. So I'd go back out there and flip them, beat on them with a sledgehammer for conditioning, that kind of stuff, and so I'd already started doing that and using it as conditioning, multiple tire flips. I have one where some of the guys think I'm a cruel bastard. It's jump on the tire, jump in the tire, jump on the tire, flip the tire, and just keep going. In that. So I started putting that together, and had been doing it that way for a while. And then Evan Marcus is a real good friend of mine. Evan's now with the Arizona Cardinals. And when he was with Cleveland, I went up there with Ben Franks, my All Black Ben Franks. We met up there and kind of focused a little bit more. Kind of taught me how he put stuff together. I started using it more in conditioning. I didn't have like row ergometers, so I used the battling ropes. So it was stuff that I'd already been doing, but I just kind of learned how to put it together a little bit better. Some of the different carries and everything else, and then so I put it. I look at it, and I'm gonna put some strength parts in there with some endurance, and then I'm gonna bring it back down a little bit. And it was so I would go through and I would say, all right, we're gonna do 12 reps, on each one of these and that. And then Evan taught me, he would have them set up, and it was like, all right, how many times can you go through in 30 minutes? Or we're going to go through 6 times, mark your score down. Now it becomes a little bit of a challenge because your rest is what you want to take. And so I really had been doing it, and I really started kind of perfecting it when I was with NOLA Gold. And we would do it every Friday. And the funny part is I had some good forwards doing it, but I had more backs doing it than forwards. It was like one guy that really took to it is Doc, call him Doc, Doc Irie, James Irie, 37 years old, still playing for the NOLA Gold. active duty Navy.
Hmm.
Those circuits kind of created him in that he was the as he even puts it in a testimony he put on my website, fat and out of shape from multiple deployments. He'd done multiple deployments overseas as a Navy medic, embedded with SEAL teams as well. So he's been blown up a little bit. He's been beat up a little bit, and taught him, how to do that. That was a great way of putting, for the big guys, it was a great way of getting in shape, but not feeling like you're riding a bike and losing everything. You don't really realize how hard you're working until you see that puddle of sweat that's underneath here. So now I want to kind of put all my circuits together and the ideas and the reasoning behind them, and I want to start putting that out there.
Yeah,
Because
you have to.
I'd put it in there, and then you'll always see it. I mean, I don't know if I shared a few with you, but you'll see them on my older Instagram. There was always going to be like kettlebell swing, goblet squat, pull-ups, push-ups, and that was just to get the heart rate back down and give them a little bit of rest inside.
Hmm.
So they thought, doing 20 kettlebell swings, not that much fun, and then pulling it up, holding it into a goblet squat, for 15, 10 pull-ups or 10 push-ups, 5 pull-ups. You don't think that's much when you look at it, and then it's a lot when you get done, doing the other 3 exercises that are in front of it. That brings it back down. You got another one, and you go back through it again. But for them, it was always a challenge, and athletes, and I think just people in general want to be challenged.
Hmm.
I don't think anybody doesn't want to be challenged in their training if they're really into it and they're really seeing what they want to do. I mean, I've done it even with a swimmer, Josh Davis, who was a multi-gold medalist in 1996. It was a multi-gold medalist, silver medalist in 2000, and he had never lifted weights when he was at University of Texas. A little bit of stuff, but they really didn't lift weights back then in that for swimming, and came to me. Now his wife was an unbelievable volleyball player and basketball player at UT. She was trained by Angel Spazoff. This girl had a 240-pound power clean.
Okay.
Yeah, in a big vertical leap, and Josh just looked good. What the hell did she say? She was rehabbing her knee, and he came in there to do some pull downs because she was in the weight room in his Izod shirt with the collar popped up and a pair of khaki shorts. She's looking over. I'm like, hey, you're working out. So, but he wanted to be challenged. He never did pull-ups before. He never did dips. And I have a thing where we were going through, and he ended up doing 8 pull-ups every minute for 10 minutes, 80 pull-ups. And he turned the dips the same way. And he started where he couldn't do 4 pull-ups to start. And that's what we got him to. And he was a great guy. He was fun to be around. But yeah, he would take a challenge. There's a reason he was an Olympic medalist. He'd take a challenge. I don't think you could do that, Josh. We'll do it this way. Oh yeah, I can do that. Get out of the way. Let me show you. So, but yeah. And what's that?
I was gonna say, do you always are your strongman conditioning sessions? They always standalone, or do you also have ones where you do maybe after a strength session?
I'll do small ones after a strength session.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, these are standalone. It would be the strongman would probably, after we warmed up, and got everything going, probably about a 15, 20-minute warm up inside the gym, maybe some like dumbbell. I like dumbbell power cleans. In that we do that warm up and everything, get a little bit of bicep and a little bit of stretch, go out there and walk them through it. That workout's going to take a good 30 minutes at least, if not 40. Then they're going to, take a good 10 minutes to cool down. The gym in New Orleans, WAC, the West Bank Athletic Club, most unbelievable gym there is. But Bum had a great pool, so they jump in the pool for a little bit, and we would do everything until about 10:30, quarter to 11, and 11 o'clock we would all end up as a group at an all-you-can-eat sushi place. destroy the place. So
I can imagine. Do you want to give some examples of what a strongman conditioning circuit might look like?
So I would use the so like I said, we didn't have the ski ergometer, so I would use the battling rope. Battling rope, and I can't give them times because they're going through, so it would be reps. So it might be 30 reps or 40 reps
Hmm.
with that. And then I might have I'd have a Zercher squat, or not Zercher squat, but I have a Zercher carry set up with
Hmm.
the yoke walk. So you
Hmm.
pick that up, go down, pick it up, bring it back. There's gonna be a farmer's carry in there. Sometimes the farmer's carry by the side, sometimes overhead carry, one arm overhead, two arms overhead. So it's gonna be there's gonna be a carry in there.
Hmm.
Then they would do the a tire flip, or we might and you, God, you would not believe how many people have never swung a sledgehammer before in your life. So we'd always, get the sledgehammer out there, that kind of stuff. So there's going to be probably 5, maybe 8 exercises in it.
Okay.
So yeah, like I said, I'm always going to bring it back down. We're always going to have some swings in there. I use the kettlebell swings because I know it really stretches everything out.
Hmm.
I want long swings. I don't want that little short arm, whatever the heck that is, that you see some of the ones do. And I know they get taught that way sometimes, but I want big long swings underneath. I want big long swings out.
Mm.
Um, med ball slams were always in there. That were going to be in there. It might be front slam, side slam, that kind of stuff. Bum had a great 100-pound med ball. So I had a
Ooh.
100-pound med ball and maybe a couple 100-pound sandbags, and I would have them, over the shoulder a few times, that kind of stuff. But it's always going to be, well thought out, and then challenging, and then get them going on it, and just sit there and watch. They at me, throw things at me, and the more of them that laid on the ground gasping for the air, the prouder I was.
It's such a good modality too for even like for grapplers, just because you're having to
Yeah,
hold other human beings all the time. And you don't often see even just basic, I guess, carries and stuff in a lot of, I guess, because they grappling programs for some reason. It's almost like they're fallen out of favor and been forgotten.
that's
But
it's interesting because there's a guy here, Nader. Nader's a stud combat athlete.
yeah.
Wrestled for the Air Force, not the academy, but for the Air Force. I mean, wrestled in high school. And he does teaches combatives and that kind of stuff. And we were talking the other day. It's like that's a lot of wrestling programs. Even when he was at the
Mm.
Olympic Training Center, is pick that guy up and carry him.
Yeah, carry each other.
Yeah, carry each other. Different carries and everything, and that's really effective. Dan John's got a lot of great stuff
Yep.
with the overhead carry. He's the one I've got. It might be a 30-pound kettlebell, in this hand overhead, and I may have a 50-pound kettlebell in my opposite hand.
Yeah, I used to do that with my athletes too.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, one I don't even know where the hell I came up with it from Dan or from what it was, like a waiter carry. I had these guys because I wanted to stretch those wrists out. Um, Michael Baska was a really good player for me with Nola Gold. Put a 20-kilo plate on his hand, put it over his head like he was carrying a tray, and walked.
Mm.
You swear when you take you swear your arm is up, your shoulders next to your head, your arms straight, and then you get a video of it, it looked like this. So it really became conscious, and I really like a lot of that work on that upper back and the scapula.
Mm.
Getting up there, I love doing carries. Let's see, one that I just did it with mine. So I put I put little circuits in at the end of a lot of my training sessions for myself
Hmm.
as well, and for for my guys now. I mean, one we did this week was it was 10 swings, 10 single arm swings,
Hmm.
5 cleans, and then 10 squat to press. And then
Hmm.
you got done, you had to hold it overhead, you had to walk to the end of my gym, and you had to switch
Hmm.
hands and do it again. And just keep going back and forth. Rest when you want. I always tell them, rest when you want, but you're trying to get them all strung together. In that, and do four of them, and that'll get you breathing hard.
Hmm.
So always looking at things like that to put in there,
No,
because I don't want to
perfect.
just. And I've never been. I trained. I'm in pursuit of strength for strength. It's strength itself. That's what I'm chasing. I'm chasing strength just to chase strength. Right
Hmm.
now, my next goal is, well, shit, no one knows it yet, but you'll know it now. In 2025, next year, I want to go to Scotland the first week of of August and do Donald Denny Day.
Mm.
I want to do the Denny Stones. I'll be 63 years old. I want to lift the Denny Stones.
So how are you training? Are you doing any kind of? Do you have a Denny replica or anything at your
Do some
gym? Or?
pin work. I'm going to get the Denny replica pins now from Cerberus. I'm going to have to
Yep.
because I'm challenged myself to do that. But I also want to hit some of the other manhood stones, other historic stones, the Inver
Yep.
stone, and some of the other ones. I got some buddies over there. I'll stay for a few extra days and go hit some of the other stones that I've lifted before, and some that I have never lifted. So that's my next challenge to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So learning how to pick up the stones again, getting my sandbags out. I'm not going to chew up my arms with my stones. I actually gave my stones to one of the kids that I trained with. He wasn't a kid; he's a grown ass man, but they're all kids to me. He was doing strongman when I was at Fort Campbell for a few months. He was doing strongman. I didn't feel like I brought the stones from San Antonio to Clarksville, Tennessee. I didn't feel like bringing them down to Florida. So he was doing strongman. I gave them to him because I use the sandbags a lot more, the heavier sandbags. So my buddy that's the one of the strength coaches on base with me. He's got a whole array of sandbags. I have a few of mine that
nice.
I'll bring in so I can lift with them, and they'll sit there as a challenge to the airmen that are in there. It's always going to be. I'm going to bring I have shot puts from 8 pounds to 28 pounds. And for for grip work, for like an open grip work, and I have all my you know me, I got all of my Iron Mind toys, in a toy box in my office, and guys will come in, hey, we want to do this, hey, we want to do that, we got some guys talking, I'll have guys at lunchtime come in just to do some grip challenges.
That's so good though.
Yep.
That's so good.
When I threw out all the grippers, all my grippers. I threw those out. I'm like, hey, this is how much this one is, how much pressure this one is. It takes this. I'm like, if you can. Oh my God, I got guys that are probably gonna end up with tendonitis in their forearms trying to keep it close.
That's tough, man. I've got a trainer, a 1 and a 2 gripper, and I can close the 1. Yeah, but the 2 is just like that's a different serious training.
I have my number 3 that I got certified on.
Oh, damn.
It's funny. I just looked down. I'm wearing my Iron Mind shirt too.
Yeah, exactly.
When I closed the number 3, Terry Todd, God rest his soul, he certified me.
Oh, wow.
But now I pick it up now, Jane. I pick it up now. I'm like, how did
I do this?
Did I drive over this thing in a car? I know that I gave myself tendonitis so bad that I had to stop training for it once.
Oh my gosh.
Just from trying to do it. But now I want to do the number 2.
Mm-hmm. What's the trick? Is it just doing like I guess almost like 5x5s with it, doing higher reps with it? What is it that
I did more high reps with it and then train.
Yeah.
That other piece that Randy sells, it's a little piece like this and about that big around, to put the weight on it to figure out how to close. The problem a lot of people have is closing it at the end. So you put like a 2.5 pound plate on a training strap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hang it from the training strap. Grab the training strap with the one that you can close, and hold it, and that'll teach you to finish closing it. Okay. I did a bunch of eccentrics. With it too, or like slow openings. I would close it with both hands and slowly let it come open.
Yeah, I've done a few of those too.
Yeah, but you really got to be careful because you really do take a chance to get some tendonitis up in that elbow where it comes on the top side. But I freaking love doing them. I really think that they're beneficial. I like all the grip toys. Not just that. Randy's a friend of mine. I'm ready to put up another post because I was reading all my other books and I got some great books. I'm gonna reach out and talk to Dan Clather that wrote Power. You got one for, so I think it's a running one, but his little black book of training secrets. It's really good. I got turned on to him by a buddy of mine, Pete Harding, who's the CEO of Tonga Rugby. I knew Pete when he was a strength coach. And in that he's real good friends with Ashley Jones. That's how I met him.
Yep.
And
I gotcha.
Yeah, he's a really good dude. Actually, '96 at the strength coaches conference, UTSA wasn't going to pay me to go. I was on my own dime, so I slept on the floor in their room. So yeah, and so Pete and I, you go way back, but that. But I was like, you know what? I was unpacking stuff in the spare room as I moved into my new apartment, and was like, wow, I have all my Milos. Why don't I? I started pulling those out. I'm like, I learned more from reading the Milos, than I
Yep.
do from some of the other books. So these are people that did it, that been there, they did it, and then that, and it's not as far fetched. Everybody tries to make things out to be, so scientific, but science has been part of strength conditioning for a very long time now. I mean,
Hmm.
people not enough younger strength coaches understand that Bob Ward, who was the strength coach, Dr. Bob Ward was the strength coach for the Dallas Cowboys. And Bob was real big into martial arts. This is we're talking about 1970s. He hooked up heavy bags and had sensors built into heavy bags to measure how hard an athlete could hit that heavy bag.
Hmm.
There was a player named Randy White that went around and taught like combative stuff. What you would think would be combatives to other NFL teams because Bob Ward brought in judo, Aikido, Taekwondo people to come in and teach his offense and defensive line balance, fighting techniques.
Mm.
This is in the 1970s. He talks about, oh God, when I heard him talk one time, talk about towing. He's the one that came up with a lot of like the towing, having the athlete, go overspeed on the toe.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
what he did was he had a piece of rope and he had it hooked up to a motor and a thing that would spin it back. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Start the lawnmower engine. The athlete like yank and then take off running. That's the original. So it's been around. And then for me, I grew up as a half-ass athlete into moving into more, being more. But when I got more into throwing, that's weightlifting was a sport that I loved growing up. But it was strongman and throwing that I really loved.
Mm.
Something about that, for me, it was the AAUs and all that. That 12-pound steel ball didn't make a very good transition to the 16-pound steel ball. I had already gotten bitten by the weightlifting, the powerlifting bug, or like the heavy training bug, and was going that way. But you can't be a thrower. I mean, you can't be a rugby strength coach or a rugby coach. You can't be in martial arts and not understand physics, balance, and everything else. And I think sometimes we get a little too far away from that. Just looking and actually, this thing is great. Shit, I really wish that this would have been around a little bit more when I was first starting to coach in that.
For anyone listening, it was the phone.
Just yeah, just so I can get some pictures of some of the people, But too many rely on that and technology, and they don't rely on their own coaching. They don't rely on their own coach's eye. They don't develop a coach's eye.
Yeah, 100%.
I can look and tell you. I mean, I use Tendo unit once in a while in my training. I use velocity based training in and around, but I can also cheat the hell out of it. If I'm pulling and I'm doing it on a pull, if I get to about 3/4 where I'm in my strong spot and I yank back really hard,
Yeah.
well, that average velocity just got tricked. This is the same thing as jumping on the jump mat, and see the guys, and then all of a sudden,
Landing bent legs.
yeah, they're starting to pull their knees up into a tug jump, get more hang time.
Yeah.
Now, not saying it's not a great tool. I'd love to have had one, even when I was at the Spurs to see where the guys were at, when they walked in that. But there's something to jumping and reaching at a vertex. Or in my gym in Houston, I had a softball on a hook, and I would throw it over the rafters. Remember how tall it was in there? I'd throw it over the rafters, and I would, like leave it there, and it might be at 8 feet, might be at 9 feet, and see how many of the guys walked in and started jumping at it. So because there's a challenge to it, and there's a I don't know. It's like throwing a med ball.
Mm.
So throwing a med ball, I know where it lands. Especially if I'm throwing on a football field or by a
Hmm.
cone. I know where it lands, and I'm going to challenge myself to hit that spot or go further. And if I go less, I want to know why.
Yeah.
If I throw it on the wall, I can hear it. So I have
Hmm.
my own coaching with that. Yeah, a little too much looking through the lens of the camera, looking through this and that, not enough just paying attention to what they're doing.
100%. 100%.
Learning.
I'll let you go. I've got
What's,
one more question
what's that?
for you. I got one more question for you from Emil in the chat,
I
and
know it.
he's asking, have you ever coached slow twitch, non-explosive athletes, and how would you help them get stronger and faster?
What would be a slow twitch, non what? Non explosive.
Non-explosive athlete. So I guess like a workhorse that doesn't jump very high,
He needs to jump. If he needs to jump high, we're going to have to learn. We're going to have to get
or
there.
even just being explosive in general.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're just like more short amplitude, more jumping, more med ball. Still trying to maintain his strength.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course I have. Shit, I'm one of them. When I went to the Highland Games, I'm one of them. I was strong. Squat almost 700 pounds in a pair of gym shorts. Squat over 8. In a competition suit. Single ply, by the way, not that geared crap that they wear now. But but when I wanted to move to the Highland Games and be more athletic, yeah, I was slow, slow, slow. So that's where the med ball came into play. That's where coming back to the Olympic lifts, even if they're high pulls, from the floor,
Mm.
but because my wrist flexibility going back this far, I'm not catching. That's like I said before. I mean, my snatch and clean are right about the same, if not my snatch is even higher. I did a contest in Shreveport, at Louisiana Shreveport, for
Hmm.
Kyle Pierce was up there.
Yep.
My workout partner, and I ended up snatching 145 and cleaning 120. He's like, that doesn't. Yeah, that's the best I can. That's the best I can do. And it wasn't a clean and jerk; it was a clean and ugly push press. So, but yeah, 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 and that's where you kind of have to get in there. That's where plyos come in, and basic, even just basic skipping.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I've been amazed is watching people skip. Um, whether it's where I'm at now or where I've been before, is the inability to march. If you can't, I always taught that if you can't march, you can't skip. If you can't skip, you can't run.
Mm.
So I introduced Ben Franks. He's a strong boy. He was fairly explosive. I mean, yeah, of course he was explosive to a point. He won a friggin' Rugby World Cup. It wasn't just the year that I trained him leading up into that. He had a lot of training before him, but introduced him to other stuff, other modalities. Back to his cleans and stuff. But yeah, it's training somebody that's a little bit slower. You're going to use a little bit more, hang clean above the knee. Maybe not as much off the floor. Like I said, I like the power clean, and I'm going to start taking you. I'm going to start taking the med ball. You're not going to just do the med ball from what you would think would be like a hang position, like above the knee. I make you put it on the ground and squat to it, and grab it and throw. The one thing that I do is, and you'll never find me doing it anywhere else other than that, but I will wear gloves when I throw med ball because
Mm.
it picks up too much dirt. It picks up too much dirt, dust, and stuff. I hate having it slip out of my hand. I've
Yep.
actually strained my bicep doing that. Like, get a good scoop toss on it, and
Mm.
it spins out. And I've actually strained. But if you got a pair of gloves on, like receiver gloves from cheap pair from Academy or something like that, or anything like that, you're always going to grab a hold of the ball. You're going to get a good rep on every one of them. Ain't no different than putting chalk on my hands for a lift.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, but yeah. If you got a guy that's slow in all of that, you want to introduce him to the explosive stuff, and yeah, you want to introduce them to cleans. You really do. But as you're introducing them to cleans and you need them to get quicker, that's where that med ball scoop tosses start coming in. That's where jumping comes in.
Hmm.
I don't see any sport that jumps don't help.
For sure.
I had two young ladies that were bronze medal winners fencers, and they trained with me in Houston, and they jumped, not very high, but they jumped.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's jumps are in my program all the time. They're in Sally, her program. But she's still, she's not an athlete, but she loves doing them. I mean, normal people like doing them. It doesn't have to be max, max jumps, but you do that. One that I had that really helped me a lot was standing on a 12-inch box,
Yeah.
and backwards. So, and falling, stepping off and then getting that rebound and trying to
Yep.
get that tempo. I used to like doing that on stairs. Is one step at a time. Yeah, you want to get those max jumps, but you still want to be able to. Same as skipping, you still want to be able to get that quick reaction, ankles nice and tight, quick reaction, because then it comes from your hips. You're getting, and it comes from your hips, because that's where your power comes from. Your power comes from your hips. Sometimes I find some people will when they're starting to do the Olympic lifts, they end up jumping like bunny rabbits. They want to stomp their feet. Like, man, you can't apply force to the ground if you're not on the ground. So if you're an athlete, you want your hips to drive you off the ground, not your ankles. So, I mean, I've had guys where I've actually not allowed them to jump while they were doing their Olympic lifts until they finally figured out to engage their hips. Right, so engage their hips to be able to do that. So, but goes back to the same thing. I love the med ball. I loved it when I was a kid throwing in that, and when I got to UT San Antonio, the track coach, the sprint coach, had one of those weightlifting classes that they teach in the morning for a little bit of extra cash in their paycheck, and he would open up the little weight cage that we had up there, and his class did something, and he would sit over there and talk to me. And but he's the one that kind of taught me for a long time. The med ball had fallen out of favor in the late '80s, early '90s, and track and field coaches, they're the ones that kept it alive. So, and it's like scoop toss with a 16-pound steel shot, scoop toss backwards, scoop toss forward is still a staple in most throwers' off-season training. It's how you measure. It's one of the tests. It's a scoop toss. I don't know if it's backward or forward. I think it's forward. Scoop toss forward is a test for USA bobsled. At least it was when I was training a couple of guys that were trying to go out to it as a real important test. It's a test in the Army as well. A med ball scoop toss backwards. So it's a good gauge. It's a good gauge on power output. And easy.
For sure.
Everybody can throw, or so you think. And listen to the kids that I trained when I trained them. When I was with the Spurs, I trained the owner's kid and a bunch of his little buddies, and they were 14 years old, could barely walk and chew gum, and we threw med ball till they could get their bodies coordinated enough to, you when you're a kid, you went outside and you ran and you threw and you played and everything, rugby ball, that kind of stuff. Not these guys, and not unless it was on a video game. But and get them out there throwing that ball, they figure out how to coordinate. And go back to the same thing. Talking about the med ball with Jesse James Leha, I said that I used a med ball on him. I used a med ball on a wall. And the very first time I ever trained him, we ran. Before we ran, it was probably 150 throws.
Whoa.
I have a circuit with a 4-kilo med ball, and it was 10 exercises. We went through it 1.5 times, in half. So, and it's different, various throws. And so I go up to the gym to visit with him. And I can see him in the ring, and the boy can't pick his hands up. I mean, he cannot pick his hands up, and everybody's eyeballing me because I broke their superstar. And I was like, "Listen, James, I expect you to throw more with your gut." I said, especially since you this is where your punching power comes from. It's where your swing power comes from. We talked a little bit. He goes, no, but they moved the fight up. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Well, the chief second just kept eyeballing the hell out of me. And chief second's his main trainer. And his dad was watching me. And we were messing around. And a couple of weeks later, I come in there, and Leo, his chief second, says, you guys stop that stupid ball throwing shit? I was like, no, actually, he threw 300 times today. Why? He goes, because I think he just broke my ribs through through the pads. And James looked at me, he goes, I understand what you mean. So somebody as great as James was, like I said, he's a two-time world champion. He fought Azuma Nelson. He fought De La Hoya. I mean, he's a stud. But to hold that med ball and learn how to turn, and learn how to twist and throw, and learn how to, learn how the arms are last, the torso moves, and everything else. Learn how to be coordinated and how to put some power into it. It improved his career, and he was in his 30s when I started training him. He was an ex-world champion that they put guys in front of to kind of gauge how they were, to fighting for 2 world titles. So it made a big difference, jumping, sprinting, learning how to move.
Yeah, that's the perfect way to end this podcast too. Yeah, but where can people find and follow you and keep up with what you're doing?
On my social media, they can find me on there. Just it's under Ed Cosner and or old strong guys rule. As my I use it for my masters lifters and my master stuff. They can reach out to me at edcosner@gmail.com or my website at, what is my website? Play Hard, Train Harder.
That's the one.
Yeah, Play Hard, Train Harder, which came from the sport itself is never intense enough to elicit a physiological response. In other words, you're not going to get any condition playing the sport. Training's got to be harder. That's where your strength coaches like you, me, others, that training's got to be hard. It's got to be intense. And then you're going to get a good physiological response.
Perfect. That's a perfect way to end this, Ed. I appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate it too.
And hopefully everyone enjoyed it.
Me too. Yeah, you guys have to come visit.
100%, man. 100%.
Right here.